Hi, pipe smokers. Yeah, happy Sunday. I'm Paul the Pipe Guy, live from the outskirts of Rochester, New York, in the United States of America. Let's talk about Kaywoodie pipes. All right. Um, I started collecting them about 4.5 years ago, and at that time, you could find this particular type of billiard vary quite easily. Now, if you know Kaywoodie pipes at all, this one has a 4-hole stinger. Okay, so that means this is the stinger system. It was invented by Kaywoodie. The smoke would come down from the bowl through the pipe, and the older ones have 4 holes. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. The smoke goes through there and then goes into this chamber, down through the stem and into your mouth. I was very, very fortunate 4.5 years ago to start buying up these pipes because this pipe right here, it's has a 4-hole stinger, and it has a 4-digit serial number. So it's basically a 100-year-old pipe. All right, and the briar on it is phenomenal. This particular one is a bowl number 5190. It is a Kaywoodie Super Grain. These pipes are excellent smokers, but you have to keep them clean after every smoke. You got to totally clean them out. So you can't find these anymore. I checked all through eBay just now. You can't find these poker pipes with the stem like that. You just can't. And I have another one right here. This one is a super grain also. It has a 4-hole stinger. And you just can't find them. You just can't find them anymore. I was very fortunate to pick up about 1.5 dozen of these. And there's something about smoking a 100-year-old pipe that's just really nostalgic and just an awesome experience. You know, you think, who owned these? All right. Who was it that went into the store, they bought these, they brought them home, they smoked them for the first time, were probably really excited. And it's just, they're gorgeous pieces of artwork. And you can't find this shape anymore. And if you do, you're going to seriously pay up for it. And you look at these pipes, all right? There's no teeth chatter on there, nothing, you know, on either one of these. And I could get out, this one has a little teeth chatter, just a little bit, you can see it. Somebody clenched it a little bit, but not bad. So a lot of those pipes were ghosted with the tobacco that was available 100 years ago, meaning that if you smoke, you know, your blend in them now, you're going to get either a bitter or sour taste, most likely. So both of these pipes I put through a salt and alcohol treatment. I've done videos on that. Basically, you take the stem off, plug this end up, watertight. You add Morton kosher salt in it, and then you add Everclear, which is like 99% or 98% pure grain alcohol, but it leaves no residual taste. You let them soak and soak and soak for about a week. and just keep adding alcohol as it evaporates. And what it does is the alcohol gets into the pores of the interior of the briar pipe, and it kind of sucks out the tobacco taste of whoever smoked that for decades. So we're gonna fill them up and start them on fire. I love these pipes. I'm very fortunate, and like I said, these pipes, these billiard pipes that shape with a 4-digit serial number, 4 holes in the stinger, they're just a piece of Americana. It's a piece of history, and you just can't find them anymore. I was so fortunate to be able to get those when I did, and I got them at reasonable prices. We're going to pause the video for a second. We're going to load them up, and I'll be back in a nanosecond. All right, so we're back. So we have our first pipe here, which is a beautiful example of a Kaywoodie billiard pipe that's 100 years old. And like I said, I own a dozen and a half or so of these. And the Kaywoodie pipe, Kaywoodie used to own their own briar company. So they had the briar company. They would only take the highest quality briar. If it didn't meet Kaywoodie's stringent standards of perfection, they would pass it on to Yellow Bowl and some other pipe companies, some of which they owned interest in. Let's start this one on fire, all right? That's a 100-year-old Kaywoodie. And in that we have some Officers Club, which they didn't have 100 years ago. So imagine yourself smoking this pipe, and it takes you back in time to 100 years ago, when most people were still riding horses. Very few people had cars. You couldn't afford it. Television wasn't invented yet. We had just come out of World War I 6 years before. The Titanic had sank about 10 years before. And life was simple. So you went to work at your job every day, be it at the sawmill, maybe a factory. Things were pretty primitive then. They had radio, and after dinners, a lot of families would gather around the radio. And listen to it for entertainment. It was more for entertainment than music. And then there was a certain group of people that the meeting place back in those days, 100 years ago, happened to be the local hardware store. So everyone would finish up their day's work by 5 o'clock, go home and have dinner with the family, and then for 2 or 3 hours they'd go to the local hardware store in the back room where the men, women weren't allowed there, would talk about the current situations of the small town they lived in, laugh and joke around, have a couple of pints of beer or maybe a glass or two of whiskey, and then it was off to home and time for bed. And that's what men who smoked pipes like this did. My great grandfather worked for the railroad. Don't know if he smoked pipes or cigars. I don't know. Well, during World War I, pipes, pipe tobacco, and cigars were very expensive to send over to our troops over to Europe. So what did they do? They invented the cigarette, which this is a filtered cigarette, but all cigarettes of that day were non-filtered. And that's where they got their nicotine. So a lot of gents came back after World War I dropped the pipes and cigars and started smoking cigarettes. Can you imagine though, living in a small town and you get finished with work, a long hard day. Oh my God, there's a beautiful girl running down the road, jogging. And so they finished their long, hard day at work. A lot of them worked many hours, They'd start at 6 in the morning and work till 5 at night. That's the way you supported your family. And pretty much every wife, back in those days, they stayed home, took care of the children, took care of the house, took care of the food preparation, meals, and so forth. And that's the way it was back then. It was simple. So these men would gather in the back rooms with wood floors, of the hardware store. Don't know how many were there. Probably 6, 10, maybe 15. Just sitting around, shooting the shit, having a cold beer, or maybe something else. Smoking their pipes and pondering. Back in those days, there was probably a lot less conversation than we have today. Probably just sat around there and yeah, well, the sawmill's doing pretty good. Another guy'd probably say, yeah, we got a really big order coming in. And the conversation would go on and on. A very slow and easy. These men had full bellies after a nice dinner prepared by their wives, spent with their families, and then there was two types of men. Ones that would go to the hardware store, and then ones that would go to the local, well, you call them pubs in the UK and all around, that area, Europe. They called them bars here. And so some of the men would go to the bars and shoot billiards, smoke pipes, cigars. Back then in the bars, the local taverns, as they called them, they didn't call them bars then, they were taverns. If you had to take a piss, you didn't go to the outhouse or the bathroom. There was a trough that ran all the way down in front of the bar. So you'd be sitting there drinking, and if you had to take a piss, you'd relieve yourself in this brass trough that carried down and went whoever knows where. And that's why in a lot of today's bars and pubs, they have like a silver or a brass bar that goes along the bottom that you rest your feet on. That kind of represents the trough that men would just stand up off their bar stool and take a piss right at the bar. They'd run right down through that trough. Well, we're going to take a break and we'll be back in a nanosecond. I hope you're enjoying this history that I've studied, that I know of, that I've talked to guys in their, I talked to guys 20 years ago and they were in their 90s and they're telling me these stories that I'm repeating back to you, and I hope it's well appreciated. I'll be back in a nanosecond. Alrighty, pipe smokers, so we're back, yeah. And we got a little shipwreck here with some ice. Cheers. Back then, 100 years ago, ice wasn't, they really didn't have refrigeration. They had it, but not everyone had refrigeration. So a lot of the small towns in the wintertime, what they'd do is they'd go out on the, at least up here in upstate New York, they'd go out on the lake with big hand saws, not power saws. They'd cut huge blocks of ice. And then what they would do is they'd take that ice, stack it up in a building that had 6-foot thick walls, stone walls. And with every block of ice that was huge that they cut out, it was all brought in with horses and buggies and so forth. They'd set it in there and they'd sprinkle sawdust, a thick layer of sawdust on it to insulate it. And we live up in the fruit belt up here where we grow apples and peaches and pears and cherries and so forth. So a lot of those crops that weren't purchased, around harvest time, they were put in what's called a cold storage. And the cold storage building was a big building. It had 6-foot walls. They didn't have air conditioning 100 years ago. And, the Iceman would come and bring your ice and put it in your ice box. And you'd ship it off or whatever. So the second pipe that we have here is this beautiful billiard. It's just the briar is just unbelievable. The camera doesn't show it. There's no teeth chatter at all on the stem. I mean, it's basically as close to new as you can get for a 100-year-old pipe. And in that, Mark Hill had gifted me, thank you, Mark Hill, Walsh Piper 62, some Revolution tobacco. Yeah, it says it was made for Paul the Pipe Guy. Let's start that on fire. Then I want to show you a couple other examples. Oh, that's so good. Latakia Rich. By the way, Brad the Bearded Piper, it's not pronounced Latakia, it's pronounced Latakia. So I've been told. I may be wrong. It just feels so good to have a 100-year-old pipe in my hands with some great tobacco and smoking it. If you can find any of these beauties, and a lot of them, the crown on the pipe is all gnawed up, but if you can find one in great condition like that, buy it, because they made millions of them, but how many survived 100 years? I don't know. Right now I'm smoking a piece of history. That's a piece of history right there. And these pipes are in excellent condition. The owner loved and cherished them. Who knows what happened? After the owner died, maybe it got passed on to the family that wanted them, or the son. I don't know. I wish they could talk. So I have some other examples here. That one's a 100-year-old billiard, and the stem's supposed to be like that. But what happens is, that's tight. So that's like way off. So what happened a lot of times is the pipe smoker who owned this pipe, all right, we'll take it apart here a little bit. You have this piece right here, which screws in to the stem of the shank of the pipe. That's glued in. if you smoked that and got that hot, you took this out and cleaned it, and then you went and cranked down on it, that glue was melted and it let loose. And so you got, that is what is called a classic Kaywoodie overturn. And that can be fixed. That's another example of what I have. We do have a Kaywoodie. It's got just a slight overturn. That's a Kaywoodie Canadian pipe. So thankful to own this. Then we have another billiard pipe here. Classic overturn. That can all be fixed so that, you know, it's straight. But, you know, for now, I can smoke it like that. These are all 100-year-old pipes. These are classic Americana. Our next one we have here is, it's not a Canadian. A Canadian has like an oval part here. And that one, oh, she's pretty straight. Always gorgeous briar though, you know. These are all 100-year-old pipes. And then these are just a few that I picked out of my pipe rack. This one has a little bit of an overturn, not too bad. Wouldn't even send that out to get it fixed, but man, look at that briar. Look at that. All 100-year-old pipes. Cheers. Yeah, so pretty glad to own those. Feel they've been bestowed upon me. Can you imagine the guy in 1920? This is 9 years before the stock market crash. Taking probably 2 days' pay, saving up and going out and buying that pipe, then taking it home. Load maybe some Prince Albert in it or something like that. Going to the back room of the hardware store. Now I remember what the hardware store was because we had one. A family owned one. They'd owned it for generations, and I saw that back room. Back then, nobody was smoking back there, but well, maybe they did after hours. But I remember the smell of hay. I remember the smell of feed. Feed is like what you feed your horses or pigs or whatever, your livestock. Remember the smell of steel. We don't have that anymore in this country. But we did then. And I remember the backside of it. Just a little snippet of the backside of it. But I did talk to some 90-year-old guys, like I said, 20 years ago, that did experience what I'm describing. Anyway, hope you enjoyed our Sunday smoke together. A little bit of Americana history. If you can find one of these in perfect shape, you better buy it, because they ain't gonna be around. I can't find it. I tried to buy another one, can't find it. I'm Paul the Pipe Guy. God bless you all. May you all have a good Sunday and a safe week. And happy smoking. Pipe smokers over and out.